Next news story of the week. I'm going to leave this one to John to explain, but basically, Link's Awakening has returned to PC in a. Can we get an idea of the legality of this? Because
Sure.
is it legal? Is it cool? Is it?
Let me here. Let me go ahead and if you go to the website where this was available, let me just read this one sentence to you, and you'll understand. It says, "Download. This game's files have been suspended for copyright or trademark claim. View the notice."
Right.
There you go.
So it's not.
I have it though.
The reason why it's not legal is because even if it was clean roomed, decompiled, the download was shipping the art assets from the game. That's always the questionable non-legal part that causes people to go after you.
I was astounded by that. So that's actually the weirdest thing about this is that when you download it, it requires nothing from you. You just play it.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And it's like when you look at those PCD compilations like Perfect Dark and such, it requires you to have the original game data separately.
Yeah.
And you have to actually sort of compile it yourself and extract that data into it. With the way they've done that, I think it's pretty much like they can't really take that down because there's no original stuff anymore in there, really. So, but this is just like, here's the game with all this like copyrighted stuff in there. So yeah, Nintendo's going to kill that real quick, and they did. But what it is essentially, it's like a PC. I think it might even be from the ground up. Using original assets. I'm not sure because the logic and the way it behaves is a little different. But it's a PC version of Link's Awakening, the Game Boy game DX. With some really unique quality of life changes, if you want to call them that. Because in the original version, it's a screen-by-screen game. Each screen is the number of pixels of the Game Boy screen. And when you hit the edge, it scrolls to the next scene. That's how the original Legend of Zelda works as well, by the way. For Super NES, they actually changed that, where it would scroll within each area, but then it would do the screen transition thing transition between major areas. So I think with the Game Boy screen resolution, the way the game worked, it made sense to do screen by screen at the time, and all the dungeon layouts are built this way as well. So, but this one allows true free scrolling in all directions, and what makes it extra crazy and reminds me of Castlevania HD or whatever it was called, the downloadable one, multiplayer one, is that you can zoom all the way out so that it's 1-to-1 pixel with the artwork, right? And the entire game world is active, which just looks super cool. Playing on like a large 4K display at 1-to-1 pixel, and you're just like, the whole world is visible, like right there on your screen in crystal clear, visuals, and just everything's working. Everything's active. Enemies, animations, everything. The whole world is moving at once. The game's not really intended to be played this way. It's very strange this way, but it is a neat thing to fiddle with for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Right. This kind of suggests it's not original game logic, right?
Right.
The original wouldn't have been doing that on a Game Boy.
No, it can't. It's
correct. It's not. Yeah. That's why I think it's probably just an original creation using original asset or using Nintendo assets, basically.
Right.
Because it just does not function like the real game does. It's too different. But you can zoom in and out. It's got 10 levels of zoom.
Nice.
It's all widescreen, of course. Just playing with the auto camera with widescreen is actually really nice on its own, and that's like a super great playable way to experience it. Because, zooming out is just kind of a party trick, but it's a neat one. Mm-hmm. It's also weird when you go into the dungeons because you just see the whole dungeon.
Yeah.
Right? And the dungeons are much smaller than the overall game world, so it's just this little centered thing on your screen. With the game running, but it's cool. I love this game, and I love being able to revisit stuff like this through a new lens. It kind of reminds me of Total Annihilation on the PC in a sense, if you remember that strategy game, because you could actually set whatever you set the resolution to on your screen, it would just basically zoom like this. They didn't scale the assets, right? It would just basically zoom out. So if you play Total Annihilation on a 4K screen, you just see everything. So that's basically what you're doing here.
Okay. I'm just curious about this because I'm just wondering if it could come back at any point, whether they could actually strip out the Nintendo assets. I mean, if it's Game Boy stuff, but this is a full color game, so.
Oh, it's this had a Game Boy Color version
Right.
DX,
Okay. So it is the color.
yeah, it's the color art, which arguably in some ways I think looks worse, because like the original black and white or green and whatever Game Boy version, you only have like say 4 colors per sprite, for instance. I believe it is something like that, right? So they would actually use those different shades of green for shading. So everything was not color, but everything had this like really smooth, nice shading to it. When they went to color, they just kind of use these garish tones instead. So it no longer looks like shading. It's just like discrete colors. So it makes the game look less visually subtle, if you will. Like the art looks more garish, I guess I would say.
Interesting way to
compared
put
to the
it.
black and white version.
Okay.
So the color is cool, but I actually prefer the graphics of the original green and white version, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be curious to see if they can actually just strip out the artwork from the
Well,
game and reship it.
Yeah, that would be interesting, actually. It would also, theoretically, that should be possible.
Why not?
I would imagine.
I'm just
I
curious
hope
if
so.
you looked at the file structure to see whether there's actually, there's the copyrighted bit.
The dump, like the art dump
Yeah.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I wonder how they dumped the art and integrated into this. And is there a way to do that live, right? Like if you provide a ROM, can you extract the data and get it to the right file formats and
Probably.
everything?
I mean,
I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'd be curious to know more on that.
mhm.
Or they could use this as a base and build a new game in this engine.
Which would also be fun. Yeah.
That'd be a lot of work, but that would be freaking cool.
Okay. Well, I guess we just need to keep our eyes open, see what's going to happen with that, or whether it is just a flight of fancy that's now a thing of the past. But
Well, nothing's ever truly gone on
no,
the
not on
internet.
the internet.
No one's
Not like
ever
this.
truly gone.
Nintendo killed that remake of Samus Returns, if you recall, and that's very easily accessible.
Right.
You even got a native PS Vita port, by the way. So if you want to play AM2R, I guess that's what it is, you could play it on the Vita.